Commands and Colours Ancients is a two-player game depicting well-known ancient battles designed by the well-known Richard Borgs, who was the designer of the well-known Memoir 44, the well-known Battle Cry, and a number of other games that use his well-known battle system. And this game is absolutely no different to those games, but, you know, it's pretty different. Give me a break. It's been a while since I've written a script for one of these. Commands and Colours Ancients is going to have you set up a historical scenario from the scenario book. You'll be placing wooden blocks on the board that represent various unit types from the scenario's era. You'll set up terrain tiles on the board that affects things like movement and line of sight. Then you'll deal out a hand of command cards which you'll use to activate units on the board. You'll move your units, resolve combat, rinse and repeat. The goal of the game is to capture enemy banners, which can be achieved by eliminating enemy units completely, or in some scenarios capturing key points on the board. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this well-known battle system, don't worry, I'm going to give you a brief overview right now. The board, as you can see, is divided into three sections. Typically, a player will play a command card to activate one or more units in one of these sections. However, there are plenty of cards that can be played to offer variety. They don't all just activate sections on the board, so the cards are much more varied than I'm making them out to be in this overview. Now let's talk about the units themselves. We have light units, which are green, medium units, blue, and heavy units, which are red. Of course, there are a lot of individual unit types. You've got cavalry, auxilia, warriors, chariots, elephants, leaders, war machines, etc. But we're not going to go too in depth here because they are all different, but they fall into one of these three categories: light, medium, or heavy. Each of these unit markings are also represented on one of the die's side. The battle system is pretty simple. If I'm attacking a light unit, when I battle, I want to roll a light green unit symbol on the die. If I do, I remove one of those blocks from that unit. When that unit is out of blocks, it is defeated and I get a banner. So I'm one step closer to victory. And if I was attacking a heavy unit, obviously, I'd want a red unit icon to show up, medium units blue. Pretty easy stuff, right? Except it's not. You see, the die has three other symbols. The swords, which will score a hit on the opposing force only during close combat, regardless of their unit type, but it won't work in a ranged attack. There's a flag icon, which means the opposing force will have to retreat, so they'll be forced to move directly backwards, and a leader icon, which will score a hit if a leader is attached to the attacking unit. Pretty easy stuff, right? Except it's not. Let's set up a bit of a scenario to show you what I mean. Each unit can move a number of hexes on the board when activated. That number varies on the unit type. So I'm going to play this card activating 2 units on the right flank. I choose to move this medium cavalry unit 3 movement spaces to here. I activate this heavy infantry unit to move 1 space to here. It also has a leader attached, he's the big fella in the middle. This moves these units adjacent to enemy units, which means they can attack in the battle phase. In the battle phase, the order of resolving battles is my choice as the attacker. I choose the heavy unit to attack first. I roll 5 dice. A light icon shows up, 1 flag, 1 leader icon, and 2 heavy icons. So 1 unit is removed because of the matching light icon, another one because of the leader icon, as I have a leader attached, then the unit retreats backwards because of the flag, meaning I'm going to have to chase them back down to finish that unit off, which can be frustrating at times for both sides as it may have changed their initial plans. Let's redo that scenario though with one small difference to demonstrate that your decisions impact the game more than you might think, given this brief overview. So I play the same card to activate the same 2 units on the right. I activate the same heavy unit as before to move 1 space. Exactly the same. But I move this medium cavalry unit 3 movement spaces to here instead of here previously. That's the only change. Same dice rolls as before, however now all enemy units are killed and removed and I get my banner. I get this result because of 1 hit with the matching light icon, 1 because of the leader icon, same as before, then a whopping 2 more hits because of the flag. You see, this unit's retreat path is now blocked. They can't retreat backward through enemy or friendly units, so they lose 1 block for every space they can't retreat, so they're completely wiped out. So in fact, all other icons aside, the flag, which was more frustrating than anything in the first scenario, actually made the biggest impact in this one, simply because of movement. Not to mention the heavy unit can do what's called a momentum advance and occupy the vacant space where the enemy stood, which puts them in a good position next turn to attack this unit here. Of course, we also have the cavalry unit's combat to resolve this turn too. So that's an example of two of many choices that I had there and the differences between them, and it would seem that the second choice was the better one to do. Maybe, but maybe not. You see, there's something that I've been hesitant to tell you guys for a long time. I've been keeping a really big secret, and I'm just going to come out and say it. I've got no more cards in my hand to activate units on the right flank next turn. You see, this is where my units ended up in the second example. I can't activate these units next turn, and maybe not for a few more turns until I get more cards. And those heavy enemy infantry units in the background will certainly want revenge, and they're not too far away. When in scenario 1 my units ended up here, which means that they can be activated with several cards I have for the centre section. And they're mostly light units I'm facing here, not heavy. So I'll ask again, which move was better? Well, you'll have to get the game to find out. But I'll tell you now, the game is full of what seems like simple decisions, but can make more of an impact on the scenario than you'd think. Positioning and planning, I feel, plays a bigger part in getting a victory in most scenarios over luck. Also, I should mention the order that battles are resolved in doesn't have to be the same as the activation order for movement. So there's strategy there too, because you can try and predict evade movements or advances and set things up a bit, so your opponent is less inclined to choose certain paths. Now, is luck involved? Yes, of course, but because you'll have decisions that can increase the probability of luck to a favourable outcome more often than not, like in the examples previously provided, I really don't feel the luck is overwhelming. However, full disclaimer, I'll say this, it took me at least 4 or 5 games over a couple of sittings, going home, rereading the rulebook in between to bring it all together. In those initial games with the hand management along with the dice, it can feel more lucky than it actually is, but I honestly think it's probably just while you're learning the intricacies of the rule set. I can play the game after the first read through, I just couldn't compete. Once all the rules are built into your decision making though, it feels a lot more like a battle sim, and in my opinion more so than it's given credit for. And don't get me wrong, it's a very well respected game generally, but I don't think a lot of people refer to it as a typical battle sim, and I honestly would, albeit a shorter one, as a game is probably about an hour to play, sometimes less. I really like the historical scenarios. It gives you a brief rundown of what each battle is about in the scenario book. The rulebook is nice, it's quite clear. There is a bit to learn though, as I've mentioned. First few plays, if both players have never played it, my suggestion would be to have 2 rulebooks on site. You can download them from GMT's website for free, which is always a blessing. There are 2 players' aids in the base box, which are very useful, so it's made as accessible as it can be. And I wanted to give a shout out to Harsh Rules, a YouTube channel that do a great in-depth, unbelievably clear instructional video on the rules for this game. And if you watch this before your first play, honestly, I think you'll be right. The graphics involved, honestly, it's brilliant. Commands and Colours Ancients to me is similar to chess in that it's more complex than the initial rule set would have you believe. And you can get good at it, really good. I played regularly with 2 fantastic gentlemen back in the day, one of which was a tournament player online. His knowledge and capabilities in the game were amazing. I think I only beat him once, and it may have been Napoleonics, which was new at the time. And again, Napoleonics uses the same battle system. It's no different to this game, except, you know, it's different. Replayability, there's 15 battles in the base box, 2 asymmetrical sides to try out for each battle. There are also scenarios online and expansions introducing more content and armies and epic games, which is my preferred method of play, even as a 2-player experience. But this method can be played with up to 6 players, and whilst I've only played it a handful of times with 6 players, it is stupidly fun. I would honestly say that those experiences would be one of my most valued gaming experiences of all time. It is literally done across 2 boards, twice the amount of units, and here's the kicker. Each player controls only one section of the board, that's your focus. But the centre player is the general and hands cards to the players aside him to utilise that will fit his overall vision and plans for the battle. So as a flank player, you're limited by his vision, so it's very thematic and thematically frustrating at times to have a general at the table, but wow, playing a game on that scale is a lot of fun, and for that reason, I'll never get rid of this game. I absolutely love it. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I hope to see you all again soon.